You can be getting richer every single year and still feel completely broke. Your income goes up, your savings creep up, your investment account quietly grows in the background, and somehow none of that translates into the feeling you thought you would have by now. The feeling of being okay, the feeling of being ahead, and what's strange is that almost nobody talks about this. We talk about how to make more money, we talk about how to invest it, we talk about side hustles and budgets and net worth milestones. But we almost never talk about the gap between the numbers on the screen and the way money actually feels in your life. Here's what nobody tells you. You can be doing everything right on paper and still feel financially exhausted. Because the way our culture has trained you to measure wealth has almost nothing to do with what wealth actually is. And until you fix that one thing, no amount of income is going to give you the feeling you are chasing. My name is Ivan, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, human psychology, and why some people seem to glide through financial challenges while others are constantly stressed about their bank account balance. If you have ever wondered what it actually feels like to have different amounts of money saved up, and more importantly, how each milestone changes your decision-making process, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it helps clarify things for you. So let's start with what we have all been told. Wealth is. Society tells you that wealth is what other people can see. The car in your driveway, the neighborhood you live in, the clothes you wear, the vacations you post, the watch on your wrist, the square footage of your home. All visual, all external, all performance. This is not a new problem, but social media took something that was already broken and turned it into a Category 5 storm. Now, you are not just comparing yourself to your neighbors and coworkers. You are comparing yourself to a curated highlight reel of the wealthiest, most photogenic moments of millions of strangers, 24 hours a day, served to you by algorithms that are specifically designed to make you feel like you are falling behind. And here is the dirty secret of all of it. Most of what you are seeing is not wealth. It's the appearance of wealth. The car was financed. The vacation went on a credit card. The lifestyle is held together by debt and timing in the hope that nothing breaks before the next paycheck. Wealth today is performance, not reality. And the louder the performance, the thinner the foundation underneath it. Once you see this, you cannot unsee it. The colleague with the new luxury sedan and the apartment in the nice part of town might have less in their savings account than you do. The friend who is always traveling might be one missed paycheck away from a panic attack. The cousin who keeps upgrading might be quietly drowning in minimum payments while you eat at home and feel boring. You are looking at the visible layer and assuming there is a foundation underneath, and there usually isn't. Now, let's talk about the second piece of this puzzle. Why you specifically might feel broke even when, by any objective measure, you are doing fine. The first reason is lifestyle inflation. Every time your income goes up, your spending goes up almost automatically. You get a raise, and within 3 months your fixed costs have crept up to match. A nicer apartment, a better car, slightly more expensive groceries, a few more subscriptions, a few more dinners out. None of it feels excessive in the moment because each individual upgrade is tiny, but collectively they eat the entire raise, and then some. The second reason is the comparison loop. Your friends are doing well, Instagram is showing you people doing better, YouTube is showing you people doing dramatically better. Your brain is constantly recalibrating what normal looks like, and it never recalibrates downward. Every time you see someone with something nicer, your baseline shifts. What used to feel comfortable now feels modest. What used to feel modest now feels lacking. The third reason is the moving goalpost problem. You probably told yourself at some point that you would feel rich at a certain salary. Maybe it was $80,000, maybe it was $150,000, maybe it was $200, and then you got there, and nothing happened internally, so you moved the number. You will feel rich at 300, at 500, after the bonus, after the promotion, after the next raise. The goalpost keeps moving, and the feeling of arrival keeps slipping away. Here is the line I want you to sit with. Your definition of rich keeps upgrading faster than your income does. That is the trap, not your salary, not the economy, not your spending. The trap is internal, and it is running silently in the background of every financial decision you make. Now let's get to the part that actually elevates this conversation past the usual personal finance content. There is a specific trap that most people fall into and never recognize, and it has nothing to do with whether they are good or bad with money in the technical sense. It is that they spend their entire adult life optimizing for looking rich instead of actually being rich. These are two completely different goals. Looking rich requires that other people can see your money, which means your money has to be visible, which means your money has to be spent. Cars, watches, dinners, clothes, vacations, square footage. The moment you spend money on something other people can see, that money is gone. It is no longer working for you. It is no longer compounding. It is sitting in the form of a depreciating asset designed to send a social signal. Being rich is the opposite. Being rich means having capital that you have not spent. Investments, cash reserves, income producing assets, optionality, none of which is visible to anyone walking past you on the street. In fact, the more wealth you actually have, the less you typically need to display because you are no longer trying to convince anyone of anything. This is the deep contrast. Loud wealth versus quiet wealth. Loud wealth is the appearance of money paid for with the absence of money. Quiet wealth is the presence of money paired with the absence of display. One drains your future to fund your image. The other lets your future quietly fund itself while nobody around you is paying attention. Here is what I want you to remember. The louder your lifestyle gets, the slower your wealth grows, because every dollar of visibility is a dollar that is no longer compounding. Every upgrade is a tax on your future self, paid to the strangers who will see you driving the car or eating at the restaurant. And those strangers do not care nearly as much as you think they do. If you are finding this helpful, hit subscribe. I post videos every week on the psychology of money and how to actually build wealth without burning yourself out trying to look rich. Now let's flip the camera around and look at how actually wealthy people think. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind, the ones whose net worth would shock you if you ever saw the number. The wealthy people I've studied and spent time around think about three things almost obsessively: control, optionality, and liquidity. Control means owning your time, owning your decisions, not being financially dependent on a job you hate, a client you cannot stand, or a circumstance you did not choose. Wealth is what allows you to walk away from things. The bigger your reserves, the bigger your no. Loud spenders trade away control every time they take on a payment, because every monthly obligation is a tiny piece of their freedom transferred to someone else. Optionality means having choices the people around you do not have. The option to take a sabbatical, the option to move, the option to start something, the option to wait out a bad market, the option to say, let me think about it, instead of I'll take whatever you offer. Optionality is invisible from the outside, but it changes how every conversation feels from the inside. Liquidity means cash, real, accessible cash, not theoretical net worth tied up in things that take months to sell. The wealthy people I know keep more cash on hand than most people can imagine because they understand that cash is what allows them to act when everyone else is paralyzed. Cash is the fuel for every contrarian move. Cash is the difference between being a buyer and being a seller when prices are scary. And here is what they do not do. They do not chase attention early. They do not need to. They are playing a long game where the visible payoff comes much later, often decades later, and they are completely fine waiting. They delay visible rewards because they know the math behind compounding, and the math punishes you brutally for early withdrawals, whether financial or psychological. Real wealth is invisible. That is the line. Real wealth lives in accounts you do not announce, decisions you do not justify, and reserves you never have to touch. It is the wealth that buys you Tuesdays, the wealth that lets you sleep, the wealth that makes you uninterested in the things that used to motivate you because you have something better than the appearance of success. You have the actual thing. Now let me give you something simple to actually do with all of this. A 3-part framework. The Quiet Wealth Framework. 3 pillars. Easy to remember, hard to actually live by. Pillar 1. Spend below your identity. This is the most important rule, and it is the one almost everyone violates the moment their income increases. Spending below your identity means that when you get a raise, you do not upgrade your lifestyle to match. You let the gap between your income and your lifestyle widen, and you funnel that gap into investments, cash reserves, and assets. Your apartment stays the same, your car stays the same, your daily habits stay the same, only your savings rate moves. Rich Richard makes $120,000 a year. He drives a paid-off Honda Civic he has had for 6 years. He lives in a perfectly fine apartment that costs him about 20% of his take-home pay. When he got a raise last year, he increased his investing contribution by exactly the amount of the raise. His friends think he makes about $70,000. His net worth says otherwise. Poor Peter makes the same $120,000. He drives a leased SUV that costs him $650 a month. He lives in a slightly nicer apartment that eats almost a third of his income. When he got a raise last year, he upgraded his lease and started eating out more. His friends think he is doing extremely well. His net worth is essentially zero because every dollar of additional income immediately found a new place to live. Same income, different identity, wildly different 10-year outcomes. Pillar 2, build in silence. No validation, no showing off, no telling people about your raises, your investments, your milestones, your wins. The moment you tell people about your money, you create an invisible contract with them. They start expecting things. Bigger gifts, picked up checks, loans they will frame as casual. Your wealth becomes a community asset in their minds, and it slowly leaks out in 100 small ways. People who build in silence do it because they understand that announcing wealth is the fastest way to turn it into something other than wealth. Quiet wealth compounds. Loud wealth gets requested, borrowed, loaned, and absorbed into other people's expectations until there is nothing left. Pillar 3, value cash and flexibility. Not everything goes into long-term investments. The personal finance internet has made cash feel like a sin because cash does not return as much as the stock market over 30 years. But cash is not a return-seeking asset. Cash is an option-buying asset. Cash is what lets you handle the emergency, take the opportunity, walk away from the bad job, and sleep through the bad market. The people who have real wealth almost always hold more cash than seems rational on a spreadsheet because they understand that the spreadsheet is missing a column. The column for sleep, the column for dignity, the column for I do not have to take this offer if it is not right. That column is paid for in liquid cash, and it is worth far more than the small return you give up by holding it. Here is the line I want you to take from this section. The goal is not to look rich. The goal is to not need anyone to think you are. Because the moment your sense of self stops requiring outside confirmation, the entire wealth game changes. Now I want to bridge into something. Because once you accept this framework, a lot of other questions start to open up. There are actually clear signs you are getting rich without realizing it, signs that have nothing to do with the things you would assume. There are specific rules that almost guarantee you always have money in your account, rules that quietly wealthy people follow without ever talking about them. And there are things rich people do every single day that they almost never openly discuss because they're just normal life to them and they have no idea how unusual their habits actually are. We are going to walk through all of it. The hidden signs, the unspoken rules, the quiet habits. Everything that the visible side of the financial world will never show you, because the visible side is in the business of selling you the appearance of wealth, not the thing itself. But before we get there, I want to leave you with the line that I think holds this entire video together. If people can tell you are getting rich, you are probably doing it wrong. The moment you stop trying to look rich is the moment you actually start becoming it. And from here, everything we cover is just the mechanics of that one shift. Every billionaire interview says the same thing. Stay invested. Don't try to time the market. Put your money to work. Cash is trash. You've heard it 1,000 times. And like a good student, you listened. You put everything into index funds and ETFs. You kept just enough in savings to cover 3 months of rent. You did exactly what they told you to do. But here's what's strange. Warren Buffett ended 2024 sitting on $334 billion in cash. Not stocks, not real estate, not crypto. Cash. Exposed to the same inflation he warns you about. And he's not alone. The ultra wealthy quietly hold 20 to 30% of their portfolios in cash and cash equivalents, while publicly telling you that anything more than 3 months of expenses is wasted money. Something doesn't add up. And today I'm going to show you exactly why the rich say one thing and do another. The specific systems that make this double standard work, and what it means for how you should actually manage your money. Think about a poker game. The best players at the table don't tell you their actual strategy while you're sitting across from them. They tell you a version of their strategy, the version that benefits them if you follow it. Finance works the same way. When someone with $100 million tells someone with $10,000 to invest identically, they're not exactly lying. They're just leaving out the parts that only work when you already have the 100 million. That gap between what they say and what they do, that's where real financial education lives. And nobody talks about it because the entire industry profits from you not understanding it. Let's break it down. Part 1, the wealthy hold way more cash than they publicly admit. Here's the data that starts this whole conversation. According to the US Trust Survey of Affluent Americans, high net worth investors with over $3 million in investable assets hold an average of 15% of their portfolios in cash and cash equivalents. That's not 3 months of expenses, that's 15% of everything. For the ultra high net worth segment, those with over 30 million cash reserves regularly exceed 20 to 30% of total portfolio value. The older and wealthier they get, the more cash they hold. The silent generation averages around 23% in cash. Younger high net worth millennials average about 11%, but even 11% is dramatically more than the 3 to 6 months of expenses that gets pushed on everyone else. Now here's where the interpretation gets interesting. Compare that to the standard advice you receive. Every financial planner, every YouTube video, every investing app tells you the same thing. Keep 3 to 6 months of expenses as an emergency fund and invest everything else. If you earn $50,000 a year, that means maybe $15,000 to $25,000 in cash. The rest goes straight into the market. But the person giving you that advice, they might have $2 million sitting in a money market account earning 4.5% while telling you with a straight face that cash is a waste. The consequence is predictable and it plays out every single market cycle. You follow the invest everything rule. The market drops 30%. You have no cash to buy the dip. You're fully invested at the worst possible time. Maybe you even need to sell some positions to cover an emergency that popped up at the worst moment. Meanwhile, the wealthy are sitting there with dry powder, calm, shopping, scooping up assets at a 50% discount using the cash they told you not to hold. They get richer during every crash specifically because they had the one thing they told you not to keep. The action here is nuanced. This isn't about hoarding cash under your mattress. It's about understanding that the 15% cash allocation the wealthy use isn't fear. It's strategy, it's ammunition. Consider keeping 10 to 15% of your portfolio in liquid reserves, not in a checking account earning nothing, but in high-yield savings accounts or short-term treasuries where your cash is working while it waits. That money isn't sleeping. It's loaded and ready. Part 2. The advice they give is designed to benefit their ecosystem, not yours. Here's what they don't want you to connect. Financial advisors, fund managers, robo-advisors, banks, they all make money when your money is invested with them, not when it's sitting in your savings account. The entire financial industry is economically incentivized to make you feel guilty about holding cash. Every article about inflation eating your savings. Every calculator showing you the opportunity cost of cash. Every advisor nudging you to maximize your invested balance. It's not that they're wrong about investing being important. They're absolutely right. But the advice to be fully invested at all times serves their interest just as much as yours. Maybe more. Let me make this concrete with the math. A financial advisor who manages your money typically charges 1% of assets under management. If you keep $100,000 in cash instead of handing it to them, that's $1,000 per year they don't earn. Multiply that across a few thousand clients making the same choice, and suddenly you understand why every single piece of financial content pushes you to invest every last dollar immediately. The fund managers are even more aggressive about it. Vanguard, Fidelity, BlackRock, they manage trillions. Every dollar you hold in cash is a dollar that's not generating management fees for someone. The consequence is a system-wide bias that disguises itself as objective advice. The standard recommendation of 3 to 6 months in an emergency fund isn't based on what's optimal for you. It's based on what's the minimum amount of cash you can hold without going bankrupt and pulling all your money out of their products. Just enough so you don't panic sell, but not so much that it cuts into their fee revenue. Here's the catch. The wealthiest people I've studied, the ones with real power and options and not just impressive numbers on a screen, they all keep far more cash than conventional wisdom suggests. Not because they don't understand investing, but because they understand something the industry doesn't want you to figure out. Cash isn't dead money. Cash is the ability to act when everyone else is frozen. And that ability has a value that never shows up on a compound interest calculator. Part 3. The buy, borrow, die strategy they use but never teach you. Now, the part no one tells you. This is probably the biggest gap between what the rich do and what they advise everyone else to do. There's a strategy called buy, borrow, die. It's completely legal. It's been around since the 1990s. And it's how the ultra wealthy access their money without ever selling their investments or paying capital gains taxes. Here's how it works in 3 steps. Step 1, they buy assets that appreciate over time. Stocks, real estate, private equity, business stakes. These assets grow in value year after year, but the growth isn't taxed until you sell. That's the key. Unrealized gains are invisible to the tax code. Step 2, instead of selling those assets when they need cash, they borrow against them. They take out something called a securities-backed line of credit, or an SBLOC. They use their stock portfolio as collateral and borrow money at low interest rates. The borrowed money isn't taxable income because it's a loan, not a sale, so they get the cash without triggering any capital gains tax. Step 3, when they eventually pass away, their heirs inherit those assets with what's called a stepped-up basis. That means all the appreciation that happened during their lifetime, the tax bill on it essentially disappears. The heirs can sell the assets the next day and owe almost nothing in capital gains. The interpretation should make your blood pressure rise a little. The wealthy tell you to stay fully invested because that's exactly what they do. But they forgot to mention that they've also built an entire system to access their money without ever selling. You stay fully invested, and when you need cash, you sell and pay taxes. They stay fully invested, and when they need cash, they borrow and pay. Almost nothing. Same advice, completely different outcomes. The system was designed this way. The consequence for regular people is brutal. You sell investments to fund your life and pay 15 to 20% in capital gains tax every time. They borrow against their investments at 3 to 5% interest and pay zero capital gains tax. Over a lifetime, this gap compounds into millions of dollars in wealth that transfers to the next generation untouched. And nobody told you about it because the strategy literally requires you to already be wealthy enough for banks to lend against your portfolio. Most lenders want at least a few $100,000 in investable assets before they'll even offer you this option. The action here starts with awareness. You may not be able to fully execute buy, borrow, die right now, but you can start thinking like someone who will. Build your investment base. Avoid selling investments unless absolutely necessary. When you do need liquidity, explore whether a margin loan or securities-backed line of credit makes more sense than liquidating positions and paying taxes. Even at smaller scales, borrowing at 5% instead of selling and paying 15 to 20% in taxes can save you thousands over time. Part 4, they have access to investments you literally cannot buy. Let's shift gears to something even more frustrating. The wealthy don't just invest differently in terms of strategy. They invest in entirely different asset classes that are legally off limits to you. In the United States, you need to be an accredited investor to access most private equity deals, venture capital funds, hedge funds, and pre-IPO stock offerings. That means you need a net worth of at least $1 million, excluding your primary residence, or an annual income of at least $200,000. Here's why this matters more than most people realize. According to the 2025 Long Angle High Net Worth Asset Allocation Report, wealthy investors now allocate roughly 30% of their portfolios to private and alternative investments. That's private equity, venture capital, angel investments, real estate deals, hedge funds, crypto allocations, and other alternatives that most people never see. 94% of high net worth investors have moved beyond the traditional 60-40 stock bond portfolio. The new model looks more like 60% stocks, 10% bonds and cash, and 30% alternatives. The consequence is a two-tier investing system. The wealthy get access to investments that have historically outperformed public markets by significant margins. Early stage venture capital, pre-IPO companies, private real estate syndications, direct business ownership stakes. Meanwhile, you're told to buy index funds and wait 40 years. And look, index funds are great. They genuinely work for long-term wealth building. But it's a little suspicious when the people recommending that you only invest in index funds are personally putting 30% of their own money into opportunities you can't access. The action is to start building toward accredited investor status if you're not there yet. In the meantime, platforms like crowdfunding sites have opened up some alternative investments to non-accredited investors. Real estate crowdfunding, small business investing, even some private credit opportunities are now accessible with lower minimums. Don't wait for permission to diversify beyond index funds. Start learning about these asset classes now so you're ready when the doors open. Part 5. They use cash to avoid the poverty premium that traps everyone else. Here's where it gets personal and mathematical at the same time. There's a concept that doesn't get enough attention called the poverty premium. It means that being low on cash actually costs you more money in almost every area of life. And the wealthy avoid this entirely by keeping substantial reserves. Let me make this concrete. You don't have cash for a car repair, So you put $2,000 on a credit card at 22% interest. Over 2 years of minimum payments, that repair actually costs you about $2,800. The wealthy person pays $2,000 cash and moves on. You don't have cash for a medical bill, so you go on a payment plan that quietly adds 30 to 40% to the original amount. The wealthy person offers to pay in full right now, and negotiates a 30 to 50% discount. Hospitals and providers do this all the time because they'd rather have guaranteed money today than chase payments for months. You don't have cash for a security deposit plus first and last month's rent, so you're locked out of better housing in neighborhoods with lower crime and better schools. You rent something more expensive long term because you couldn't afford the upfront cost of something cheaper. The math here is brutal. The average American household carries about $6,000 in credit card debt at roughly 22% interest. That's over $1,300 per year in interest alone. Over a decade, that's $13,000 burned, transferred directly to credit card companies, simply because they didn't have cash when emergencies showed up. The consequence is a cycle that feeds itself. No cash leads to debt. Debt leads to interest payments. Interest payments eat into your ability to save cash. Less cash means the next emergency goes on credit too, and the cycle accelerates. Meanwhile, the wealthy never enter this cycle in the first place because they have enough cash to handle every emergency at actual cost, not actual cost plus 22%. The action is to build your cash reserves before you aggressively invest. I know that contradicts what every finance channel tells you, but paying 22% interest on debt while earning 8% on investments is not a winning strategy. Break the cycle first. Build at least 3 months of expenses in cash, then 6 months, then start your opportunity fund alongside your investments. The math always favors eliminating the poverty premium before chasing market returns. Part 6. The real reason Buffett is holding $350 billion in cash right now. Two numbers matter here. By the end of March 2025, Berkshire Hathaway held almost $350 billion in cash and short-term treasury bonds. At the same time, the company reduced its stock holdings from $354 billion down to $264 billion. Buffett didn't just hold cash, he actively sold stocks to build more cash. In 2024 alone, Berkshire sold $134 billion worth of stocks. He dumped 70% of his Apple stake. He trimmed Bank of America and Citigroup. This wasn't passive. This was aggressive repositioning. Now, here's what makes this relevant to you. Buffett used his own favorite market valuation measure, the ratio of total US stock market value to GDP. It hit an all-time high of over 200%. The only time it was anywhere near that level was right before the dot-com bubble burst. When Buffett sees that number, he doesn't stay fully invested and hope for the best. He sells, he builds cash, he waits. But the standard advice you receive says never try to time the market. Dollar cost average. Stay fully invested through all conditions. The consequence of this disconnect is massive. When the next correction comes, and Buffett clearly believes one is likely given his moves, he'll have $350 billion ready to deploy. He'll buy incredible businesses at discount prices. His wealth will compound from a position of strength. Meanwhile, the people who followed the standard advice will be fully invested, watching their portfolios bleed, unable to take advantage of any opportunity because they have no cash. Here's the catch. I'm not saying you should try to time the market like Buffett. You probably shouldn't. He has access to information and analysis that regular investors don't. But the principle underneath his actions is universal. Cash isn't something you hold because you're scared. Cash is something you build because you're strategic. Buffett's moves tell you what his words don't. He believes cash is worth more right now than the investments he could buy with it. When the smartest investor alive is choosing cash over stocks at this scale, maybe the standard advice to stay fully invested at all times deserves a second look. Part 7. The tax code rewards them for staying invested while penalizing you for selling. Zoom out for a second. The entire US tax system is structured in a way that benefits people who never sell their investments. If you buy a stock and it goes up 500% over 20 years, you owe zero in taxes as long as you don't sell. Your wealth grows completely untaxed for decades, but the moment you sell, you owe capital gains tax on the entire gain. For most people, that's 15 to 20% of everything you earned. The wealthy understand this deeply, and it changes their behavior in ways regular investors don't think about. They hold investments for decades. They never sell unless absolutely forced to. And when they need cash, they borrow against those investments instead of selling. This means their wealth compounds without the drag of taxes for their entire lifetime. When they pass away, the stepped-up basis wipes the slate clean for their heirs. The consequence for average investors is a constant tax drag. You sell investments to buy a house, you pay capital gains. You sell to fund a career change. You pay capital gains. You sell during a downturn because you need the money. You crystallize a loss and miss the recovery. Every sale is a taxable event that resets your compounding clock. Over a 40-year investing career, these tax events can reduce your final wealth by 20 to 30% compared to someone who never sold. The action is simple, but requires discipline. Sell investments as rarely as possible. Use cash reserves and income to fund your life instead of liquidating your portfolio. If you need money, explore borrowing against your investments before selling them. Even a simple margin loan at 5 to 7% interest can be cheaper than a 20% capital gains tax hit on a large appreciated position. And start thinking about your portfolio as something you build and hold, not something you build and periodically dismantle. Now, let's make this contrast crystal clear. Poor Peter and Rich Richard both earned $75,000 a year. Same city, same starting point, same access to the same financial advice. Poor Peter follows conventional wisdom perfectly. He keeps 3 months of expenses in savings, roughly $9,000. He invests everything else in index funds. His financial advisor is happy. His apps show great returns. On paper, he's doing everything right. Then life happens. His car needs a $4,000 repair. He puts it on a credit card because his emergency fund isn't deep enough. He pays 22% interest for 18 months. Total cost, $5,100. The market drops 28%. He panics slightly but holds. Good, but then his company does layoffs. He needs cash. He sells $20,000 of investments at the bottom. Those same shares would have been worth $52,000 5 years later. A great rental property hits the market at 30% below value during the downturn. Peter can't move. No cash, someone else buys it, it doubles in value over the next 7 years. He stays in a job he dislikes for 3 extra years because he doesn't have the runway to make a change. Rich Richard earns the same $75,000, but he keeps 15% of his portfolio in cash. His advisor criticizes him constantly. His friends show him compound interest calculators proving he's losing money to inflation. He ignores them. When the same car repair hits, he pays $4,000 cash. Done. When the market drops, he doesn't sell anything. He actually uses part of his cash reserves to buy stocks at a discount. When the rental property appears, he makes an offer with cash. The seller accepts a price 20% below what finance buyers were offering because cash means a fast close with no risk. When he's ready to change careers, he has 12 months of runway. He takes the leap. His new position pays $15,000 more per year. Same income, same city, same decade. 10 years later, poor Peter's net worth is $140,000. Rich Richard's net worth is $410,000. The difference is $270,000. And the entire gap comes down to one thing Peter was told not to do: hold cash. The financial industry will show you a chart that says Peter lost $43,000 to inflation by holding cash over 10 years. They'll never show you the chart where Peter lost $270,000 because he didn't have cash when it mattered. The visible cost of holding cash is small and easy to calculate. The invisible cost of not having cash is enormous and almost never mentioned. And that's not an accident. The people who profit from your money being invested are the same people designing the charts. So what does this actually mean for you? It means the next time someone tells you cash is trash, ask them how much cash they personally hold. Ask your financial advisor what percentage of their own net worth is in liquid reserves. Ask the billionaire on the podcast why they're sitting on hundreds of millions in cash while telling you to go all in on index funds. The answers will be revealing, because the truth is, the wealthy don't think cash is trash at all. They think your cash is trash. They want your money in the market, generating fees and liquidity and providing the buying pressure that keeps their own portfolio values high. But their cash is sacred. Their cash is what funds the lifestyle while their investments compound untouched. Their cash is what buys the dip during every crash. Their cash is what gives them the freedom to take risks and walk away from bad deals and sleep well at night. You don't need $350 billion to apply this. You just need to understand the principle. Build your cash position deliberately. Ignore the guilt. Ignore the inflation calculators designed to scare you into being fully invested. Hold enough cash so that you never have to sell investments at a bad time, never have to go into debt for an emergency, and always have the ability to act when everyone else is frozen. That's not losing money to inflation. That's buying the most valuable asset the rich already own, the ability to choose. I need to tell you something that is going to sound completely backwards. And honestly, it might make some of you a little angry. If your life feels boring right now, if your weekends are kind of quiet, if you look at your friends posting vacations and new cars on social media and you feel like you are falling behind while doing absolutely nothing exciting with your money, that might actually be the single biggest sign that you are on the right path. I know, that sounds ridiculous. Nobody wants to hear that boredom is a wealth indicator. But stay with me on this because I spent a long time feeling the exact same way, and it turns out the psychology behind it is fascinating. See, wealth building is not supposed to feel exciting. That is the part they leave out of every finance video with a Lamborghini in the thumbnail. The actual process of getting rich is painfully, almost aggressively, boring. You set up your automatic transfers, you contribute to your 401k, you do not touch your investments when the market dips, and then you just live your life. There is no champagne moment. There is no bell that rings. There is no confetti. And that silence, that absence of financial drama is exactly what progress sounds like. Let me make this concrete. Poor Peter earns $75,000 a year. Every time he gets bored or feels behind, he books a trip, upgrades his phone, or drops $300 on a Saturday night out. His weekends are exciting. His Instagram looks incredible. His savings account has about $800 in it. Rich Richard earns the exact same, $75,000. His weekends are almost embarrassingly simple. He grills dinner at home, reads, maybe goes for a hike. He does not post about it because there is nothing to post, but his brokerage account just crossed 6 figures and he barely noticed because the deposits are automatic. His life looks boring from the outside. From the inside, it feels like freedom slowly taking shape. And that is sign number 1. Your life feels financially uneventful. Not because nothing is happening, but because you have stopped creating expensive drama to fill the silence. Sign number 2. You stop caring what car you drive. This one is subtle, but it is one of the most reliable predictors of long-term wealth. The average new car loan in America right now is over $42,000. Monthly payments are running around $750 for about 6 years. That is almost 70% of a full year's rent for a lot of people, just to drive something shiny off a lot where it immediately loses value. Now, here is what is interesting. If you took that $750 a month and invested it instead, at an average market return, you would be looking at well over $100,000 in 10 years. Not because you are a financial genius, just because you decided that a car is something that gets you from point A to point B, not a personality statement. The secretly wealthy drive 5 to 10-year-old cars. They are paid off, they are reliable, and every month that someone else is making a car payment, that money is quietly compounding in the background. If you look at your car and think, yeah, it is fine, it works, I do not need anything fancier right now, that is not settling. That is wealth building in disguise. Sign number 3, $1,000 emergency would not destroy your month. This one sounds basic, but the numbers tell a different story. Research from Empower found that 37% of Americans cannot cover an emergency expense of more than $400. The median emergency savings in this country is about $600, and 21% of Americans have no emergency savings at all. So if you have even 3 to 6 months of expenses sitting in a savings account right now, you are already ahead of the vast majority of people around you. You just do not feel like it because nobody throws a parade when you have a boring savings account. But here is the psychological shift that matters. When you have an emergency fund, a flat tire does not become a financial crisis. A surprise medical bill does not send you spiraling. The emotional experience of money changes from constant low-grade anxiety to a kind of quiet stability. And that quiet stability, that is what wealthy people feel every single day. You are just experiencing the early version of it. Think about it this way. Poor Peter's car breaks down on a Tuesday and he immediately goes into panic mode. He is calculating which bills he can delay, whether he can put the repair on a credit card, whether he should ask his parents for a loan. The car problem becomes a life problem. It follows him to work, it keeps him up at night, A $500 repair cost him a week of mental health. Rich Richard's car breaks down on the same Tuesday. He is annoyed. Sure, nobody likes dealing with a mechanic. But he transfers the money from his emergency fund, schedules a repair, and goes about his day. The problem stays the size it actually is. $500, not $500, plus anxiety, plus shame, plus a week of lost sleep. That difference, the ability to keep a problem small, is one of the earliest and most underrated signs of building wealth. Sign number 4, you actually know your numbers. This is one of the starkest dividers between people building wealth and people stuck in place. If you can tell me roughly what your net worth is, what your savings rate looks like, what your monthly expenses actually add up to, you are operating at a completely different level than someone who just checks whether their card gets declined. Wealthy people are obsessed with their numbers, not in a stressful way. In the way a gardener checks on their plants, they are watching things grow, they are adjusting, they are paying attention. People who are struggling financially tend to avoid looking at their accounts entirely. There is actually research on this. It is called financial avoidance, and it is one of the strongest predictors of staying broke. The thinking is, if I do not look, it cannot hurt me. But of course, not looking is exactly what allows small problems to become big ones. If you check your accounts regularly, if you track your net worth even roughly, if you have a general sense of where your money goes each month, you are doing what wealthy people do. You just have not hit the big numbers yet. But the behavior is already there, and the behavior always comes before the balance. Poor Peter checks his bank account only when he is about to make a purchase and needs to know if the money is there. He treats his finances like a mystery box. Whatever is in there is in there. Rich Richard checks his accounts on Sunday mornings with a cup of coffee, not out of anxiety, out of curiosity. He knows his net worth within a few $100s at any given time. He knows what a percentage of his income he saved last month. He knows roughly what his portfolio returned this quarter. The difference is not intelligence, it is attention. And attention is the single cheapest wealth building tool that exists. It costs nothing and changes everything. Sign number 5, you have said no to something you could technically afford. This might be the most underrated wealth signal in existence. Because saying no when you have the money is a completely different act than saying no because you are broke. One is restriction, the other is discipline, and they feel very different on the inside. Think about the last time you walked away from a purchase you wanted, not because your bank account was empty, but because you weighed it against your goals and decided it was not worth it right now. Maybe it was a new watch, a spontaneous trip, a furniture upgrade. You could have swiped the card, you chose not to. Financial experts who study the habits of quietly wealthy people have found that they do exactly this. They do not hesitate to spend on genuine necessities, but they research their wants obsessively. They wait a week, sometimes a month, sometimes they just decide they do not actually need the thing at all. This kind of delayed gratification is not about deprivation. It is about choosing your future self over your present impulse. And here is the uncomfortable truth. Every time poor Peter says yes to something he wants right now, he is borrowing from the version of himself that could have been free in 10 years. Every time Rich Richard says not right now, he is making a deposit into a future where money is no longer something he worries about. If you have developed the ability to pause before spending, congratulations. That is not self-denial. That is financial maturity, and it is one of the clearest signs you are building something real. Sign number 6, your savings rate has gone up, not just your income. This is where things get really interesting because this is the trap that catches almost everyone. You get a raise, you feel great, you think finally I am going to get ahead, and then somehow 6 months later you are spending almost exactly what you earn again. Your apartment is a little nicer, your subscriptions multiplied, you eat out a bit more, and your savings about the same as before, maybe less. This is called lifestyle creep, and studies suggest that people absorb 50 to 70% of their raises into lifestyle upgrades. Without even realizing it, the US personal savings rate sits around 4 to 5% of disposable income right now, which is well below historical norms. People are earning more than ever and saving less than ever. That is not a coincidence. That is lifestyle creep at a national scale. So here is the test. Has your savings rate as a percentage of your income actually increased as you have earned more? Not just the dollar amount, the percentage. Because if you were saving 10% at $50,000 and now you are saving 15 or 20% at $70,000, you have beaten the single most common financial trap in America. And that puts you in rare company. Rich Richard gets a $5,000 raise and puts $3,000 of it toward investments before he even notices it is there. He enjoys the other $2,000 guilt-free. Poor Peter gets the same raise, and within 3 months, his expenses have magically expanded to consume every penny. One is building wealth. The other is running in place on a faster treadmill. The gap between what you earn and what you spend matters more than what you earn. If that gap is growing, your wealth is growing. Period. Sign number 7. You get more excited about your investment account than your purchase history. There is a moment in the wealth building journey that nobody really talks about. It is the moment when checking your portfolio starts to feel better than buying something new. When watching your investments tick up by a few $100s gives you a deeper satisfaction than a new pair of shoes or the latest gadget. That is not weird. That is a fundamental rewiring of how your brain relates to money. You have gone from money as something you exchange for temporary pleasure to money as something alive, something working for you even while you sleep. And once that shift happens, it is almost impossible to go back. You start noticing compound growth in real time. Your account moves by hundreds of dollars in a single day, sometimes thousands, just because the market breathed. And at some point, you realize that your money earned more this week than you used to make in a day at your first job. That is when the game starts feeling real. If you have caught yourself scrolling through your brokerage app the way you used to scroll through a shopping app, take that as a very good sign. Sign number 8. $10,000 sounds like a nice number, but not a life-changing one. This is a weird one to explain, but it is real. When you are just starting out, $10,000 sounds like an enormous amount of money. It sounds like it could fix everything, change everything, open every door. And for someone with $200 in savings, that is true. But as you build wealth, something shifts. $10,000 is still meaningful, still a real amount of money, but it is no longer the difference between surviving and drowning. It is not fantasy money anymore. It is just a solid chunk. That mental recalibration means your baseline has risen. Your financial center of gravity has moved upward. You are operating from a different floor of the building, even if you have not reached the penthouse. And the majority of Americans never make it to this floor at all. If $10,000 falling into your lap tomorrow would make you happy but not radically change your life, your net worth has quietly grown past the point where most Americans live their entire lives. And here is the thing about this shift. It does not happen overnight. There is no specific moment where you cross a line and suddenly $10,000 feels different. It is gradual. One day you just notice that you are thinking in bigger increments. Your emergency fund used to measure in hundreds, now it measures in thousands. Your investment account used to move by $50 a month, now it moves by $500. You are not rich yet, but your frame of reference has changed. And that change in frame is the psychological foundation that everything else gets built on. Sign number 9, you have started thinking in opportunity cost. This is a sneaky one. You are standing in a store looking at something that costs $300, and instead of thinking, can I afford this? Your brain automatically calculates what that $300 would become if you invested it for 10 years. You are not doing this on purpose. It just happens. That mental math is not being cheap. It is not being obsessive. It is what economists call opportunity cost thinking, and it is one of the clearest indicators that your relationship with money has fundamentally matured. You do not stop spending entirely. That is not the point. You just become aware that every dollar has 2 lives. The life where it buys something today, and the life where it grows quietly in the background and buys your freedom later. And once you see both lives simultaneously, you start making very different choices without even trying. Rich Richard sees a $400 jacket and thinks that is about $600 in 5 years. Not worth it for something I will wear 20 times. Poor Peter sees the same jacket and thinks, I deserve this. I have been working hard. Neither of them is wrong about what they want, but only one of them is thinking about what that choice costs across time. Sign number 10. People have started asking you for financial advice. This one catches you off guard. You are having a normal conversation and a friend says something like, you always seem to have your finances together. How do you budget? Or a family member quietly pulls you aside and asks how you started investing, and you think, me, I barely know what I'm doing. I do not feel like an expert. But here is what is actually happening. Other people can see your stability even when you cannot feel it from the inside. They notice that you are not stressed about bills. They notice that you did not panic when your car needed a repair. They notice that you seem to make calm decisions around money while everyone else is reactive. You have built something visible to the outside world that you cannot see from your own vantage point because you are comparing yourself to where you want to be instead of where you started. And the fact that other people are coming to you, not the other way around, is one of the strongest confirmation signals that your wealth trajectory is working. Here is an analogy that might help. Imagine you are climbing a mountain and you have been staring at the peak the entire time. You feel like you have barely moved. Then someone at the base camp radios up and says, "Do you realize how high you are right now?" You look down for the first time and realize you have covered more ground than you thought possible. That is what is happening when people ask for your advice. They are the ones at base camp, looking up at you, seeing the altitude you cannot feel because you have been focused on the peak. Sign number 11. You have completely stopped chasing get-rich-quick opportunities. Remember when a crypto coin or a viral investing trend could get your heart racing? When you heard about someone making $50,000 overnight and you felt a genuine pang of, am I missing out? If that feeling has faded, if schemes and shortcuts no longer excite you the way they used to, that is one of the clearest indicators of wealth building maturity. Because here is what happens psychologically. When you do not have a plan, everything looks like an opportunity. Every trending stock, every side hustle promise, every too good to be true pitch feels like it could be your ticket. But when you have a system, when your money is already deployed and working in index funds or real estate or whatever your strategy is, you stop needing a miracle. You already have a path. Poor Peter jumps from opportunity to opportunity. He bought a meme stock in 2021, tried dropshipping in 2022, got into a crypto token his cousin told him about in 2023. Each time he thought this is the one. Each time it was not. Rich Richard has owned the same index funds for 7 years. He does not check crypto Twitter. He does not need the next big thing because compound interest is doing the heavy lifting. And honestly, his approach is so boring that he could not even make a good story out of it at a dinner party. Patience is the most underrated wealth indicator on this entire list. If you have stopped looking for shortcuts, you have already found the real path. Sign number 12. You do not feel the need to tell anyone how well you are doing. This is the final sign, and in some ways, it is the most revealing. When someone feels financially insecure, they tend to overcompensate by signaling success. They talk about their earnings. They name drop expensive purchases. They make sure you know about the vacation, the watch, the new apartment. Financial experts call these the 3 E's: earnings, expensive purchases, and excess. But the quietly wealthy do the exact opposite. They do not discuss their income. They do not brag about what they own. They live modestly on the surface and stack assets underneath. Warren Buffett still lives in the house he bought in 1958. Mark Zuckerberg drives an Acura. These are not publicity stunts. This is what financial security actually looks like when the ego is no longer driving the spending. If you have reached a point where you genuinely do not care if other people know how much you have, where you feel zero impulse to flex or signal, where your financial life is essentially invisible to the outside world, you have crossed a psychological threshold that very few people ever reach. Because real wealth is not about what everyone can see. It is about what is going on behind the scenes, the investments compounding quietly, the emergency fund sitting there, untouched, the gap between income and expenses growing wider every year. None of it is visible on Instagram. All of it is building your freedom. So let me bring it all together. If you recognize yourself in even 4 or 5 of these signs, you are further along than you think. The problem is that wealth building does not come with a progress bar. There is no notification that says, congratulations, you are now 23% of the way to financial freedom. You just have to trust the math, trust the process, and keep going even when it feels like nothing is happening. And I think that is the real reason so many people quit before they get there. Not because the math does not work. The math always works, but because the feeling does not match the reality. You are doing everything right. Your net worth is climbing, your habits are solid, and yet you still feel like you are behind. That disconnect between progress and perception is the biggest threat to your financial future, not a market crash, not a recession. The feeling that it is not working when it absolutely is, because something is happening. You just cannot see it yet. The same way you cannot see a tree growing on any given Tuesday, but come back in 5 years and it is twice the size. Your wealth is doing the same thing, quietly, invisibly, every single month. And one day, probably on a random Wednesday, you are going to check your accounts and realize that you crossed a number you once thought was impossible. Not because anything dramatic happened, but because you showed up, kept it boring, and let time do what time does. You are closer than you think. Keep going. You know what's interesting? The wealthiest people you know probably don't look wealthy. They drive normal cars, they live in modest homes, they don't post about their portfolio on Instagram. And that's not an accident, that's strategy. Because real wealth isn't about looking rich, it's about being rich quietly, building assets in the background while everyone else is busy broadcasting theirs. Here are 14 moves that let you build serious wealth without anyone noticing. And I'll show you why invisibility is actually your biggest advantage. Let's start with why stealth wealth matters. In a culture that rewards visibility, upgraded homes, new cars, posts about promotions, quiet wealth feels almost radical. But here's the psychology beat most people miss. When your financial details remain private, you draw a clear boundary between your assets and the noise of public attention. Every public reveal creates new pressures, comparisons, judgments, unsolicited expectations, people asking for loans, relatives who suddenly need help, friends who expect you to always pick up the tab. True wealth is about being able to make choices for yourself, not for an audience. When you stop sharing every milestone, you reclaim that independence. So, let's break down the 14 moves that build wealth invisibly. Move 1. Automate everything before you see it. Here's something behavioral economists call decision fatigue. Throughout the day, you decide what to eat, what to wear, how to navigate work, when to rest. By the time you sit down to make financial decisions, your mental reserves are already thin. Each choice to save instead of spend feels heavier than it should. And once fatigue sets in, short-term comfort wins. The solution? Remove choice from the equation. Set up automatic transfers that move money into savings or investments the day after your paycheck hits, before you pay bills, before you see the balance, before you can talk yourself out of it. You effectively pay your future self first. That simple change transforms wealth building into something inevitable. Your financial goals get elevated to the same non-negotiable status as your rent or utilities. Here's a real example. A teacher automated $50 every Friday into her brokerage account. Years later, she jokes that she can't even remember her login because she never needed to check it. That's the power of out of sight, out of mind. Her wealth accumulated automatically. No budgeting nights, no second guessing, just quiet consistency. Over the years, those small weekly transfers built a foundation that manual savers rarely sustain. Move 2, never discuss income or net worth. This sounds obvious, but most people violate it constantly. They mention their salary during promotions, they talk about bonuses, they hint at investment gains, they complain about taxes in ways that reveal income brackets. Every time you disclose financial details, you create expectations. People start calculating what you can afford, what you should contribute, what you should lend. The move is simple. When asked about money, deflect politely. We're doing fine. Can't complain. Making it work. You don't owe anyone specifics. Keep your numbers private. This protects you from pressure, judgment, and unsolicited advice. The wealthiest people I know are masters at this. They talk about everything except money, and their wealth grows quietly because of it. Move 3. Drive a car that's paid off. Nothing screams broke quite like a $60,000 car with a $700 monthly payment. The wealthy know this. They drive paid off cars, often boring ones, for 8 to 10 years. Why? Because a car payment is a recurring wealth killer. Every month, you're sending money to a bank instead of your investment account. Let's make this concrete with Rich Richard and Poor Peter. Both guys make $80,000 a year. Rich Richard drives a 10-year-old Honda Civic, paid off, reliable, boring. His only costs are insurance, gas, and occasional maintenance. Maybe $300 a month total. Poor Peter leases a new car every 3 years, $600 a month plus higher insurance. Over 10 years, Rich Richard saved $36,000 in payments alone. Invested at 8%, that's over $50,000 in his net worth. Poor Peter has nothing, just another lease payment starting over. Move 4, avoid social media flex culture entirely. Every post about a vacation, a purchase, a milestone, it's data. It tells the world what you have and what you value. And that data creates pressure. You feel compelled to maintain appearances. Friends and family form opinions about your wealth. Strangers make judgments. The wealthy opt out of this entirely. They don't post their homes. They don't tag luxury brands. They don't share investment wins. They live their lives offline where wealth compounds without an audience. This isn't about being secretive. It's about protecting your mental space. When you stop performing wealth, you stop feeling obligated to maintain the performance. You just build quietly. Move 5. live in a modest home or apartment. Housing is the biggest wealth killer for most people. They stretch their budget to afford the nicest place they can qualify for. Then they're house poor. All their income goes to mortgage, utilities, maintenance, and property taxes. Meanwhile, the wealthy keep housing costs below 30% of their take-home pay. They buy less house than they can afford, or rent longer than people expect, and invest the difference. Here's the consequence most people miss. Every extra $100 per month on housing is $1,200 a year not going into investments. Over 20 years at 8% returns, that's nearly $60,000. The modest home isn't about being cheap, it's about keeping capital free to build wealth elsewhere. And nobody needs to know your mortgage payment. It's private, it's quiet, it's strategic. Move 6, freeze your lifestyle after every raise. Why does every raise seem to disappear so quickly? You start with good intentions. This increase will finally make saving easier, but your spending subtly expands to fill the new space. A slightly nicer apartment feels justified. A car upgrade feels overdue. Dinners out feel earned. Each choice seems small, yet together they cancel out the raise entirely. That invisible drift is lifestyle creep. Here's the move. Freeze your lifestyle for 1 year after every raise. Keep spending fixed. Commit the full additional income toward investing or debt reduction for 12 months. This turns a delayed gratification into an engine for acceleration. A graphic designer landed a promotion that increased her salary by several thousand a year. Instead of moving into her own apartment immediately, she kept living with roommates for 2 more years. That freed up $500 a month, which she invested into a real estate investment trust. Over time, her contributions began generating dividends that nearly covered the rent on the upgraded apartment she eventually moved into. By resisting lifestyle creep early, she built an income stream that paid for the upgrade later. 1 year of frozen spending can permanently shift your financial trajectory by transforming temporary salary boosts into lasting assets. And nobody around her had any idea she was doing it. Move 7. Keep your investment strategy boring and consistent. Flashy investments attract attention. Crypto, day trading, real estate flips, options. People love talking about these because they're exciting, but excitement is the opposite of stealth wealth. The boring move is broad market index funds, target date retirement funds, dollar cost averaging into diversified portfolios. It's so boring nobody asks about it. And that's the advantage. While everyone else is debating the next hot stock, you're quietly compounding at 8 to 10% a year. No drama, no stress, no conversations, just steady, invisible growth. Here's the math that matters. If you've been automatically investing $25 a week into a broad S&P 500 index since 2013, you'd have over $20,000 by now. That growth didn't depend on constant attention. Nobody knew you were doing it. Nobody asked about your returns. You just quietly compounded in the background. Move 8. Give anonymously when you give. Anonymous generosity is one of the most authentic expressions of wealth. It lets your values speak louder than your ego. Paying for the car behind you at a drive-thru, slipping a grocery gift card to a family in need. Donating to causes without attaching your name. Each act reinforces the idea that money is a tool, not a trophy. The absence of recognition removes pressure. It keeps the focus on impact rather than appearances, and it protects your privacy. Nobody knows you're the one helping. Nobody adjusts their expectations of you. You just quietly make life better for others without broadcasting it. That's real wealth. Move 9. Skip the luxury subscriptions and services, Spotify Premium, Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, Apple, Amazon, gym membership you never use, meal kit delivery, premium coffee subscription. Each one feels like 10 to 20 bucks. No big deal. But add them up and you're spending $300 to $500 a month on things you barely notice. The wealthy audit subscriptions ruthlessly. They cancel anything that doesn't provide clear value. They use free alternatives, they share accounts, they keep their monthly recurring costs lean because they know those small leaks add up to massive wealth drains over time. $500 a month invested for 20 years at 8%? That's over $290,000. But nobody sees you cancel Netflix. Nobody knows you're not paying for premium everything. That's the point. Move 10, build 6 months of expenses and never mention it. This is the ultimate financial buffer. 6 months of living expenses sitting in a high-yield savings account. It protects you from job loss, medical emergencies, car repairs, anything life throws at you. But here's the move. Never tell anyone you have it. The moment people know you have a cushion, they assume you can afford to lend, to help, to cover things. Keep your emergency fund private. It's your safety net, not a community resource. This boundary protects both your wealth and your relationships. You can still help people when it makes sense, but you do it on your terms, not because someone knows you have the capacity. Move 11, use LLCs or legal entities for assets. Here's where privacy gets serious. Many investors hold their investments through limited liability companies. This separates personal identity from public records. A friend manages 3 rental properties under a company called Oak Street Holdings, LLC. To anyone checking county records, the owner appears as a company, not her. That anonymity isn't just about modesty, it protects her from being seen as a source of loans or financial help by well-meaning relatives. It also keeps tenants and contractors from connecting her to those assets directly. What appears on paper as simple ownership becomes a shield between her private life and her portfolio. Fewer people know what you have. Fewer people have opinions about what you should do with it. That means fewer awkward conversations and stronger peace of mind. Move 12. Build multiple income streams silently. The wealthy don't rely on one paycheck. They build side income streams that nobody sees. Dividends from index funds, rental income through LLCs, freelance work under a business name, royalties from intellectual property. Each stream is small, but together they create financial resilience and accelerate wealth building. The key is keeping these streams private. You don't announce your side hustle. You don't post about passive income. You just quietly collect checks and reinvest them. Over time, these streams grow large enough to replace your job income. But from the outside, you just look like a normal person with a normal job. That's stealth wealth. Move 13. Master the art of selective transparency. Here's a move most people never think about. You can be open about some financial topics while staying completely private about others. This creates the illusion of transparency without actually revealing anything meaningful. For example, you can talk openly about budgeting strategies, share money-saving tips, discuss investment philosophy in general terms, but you never mention actual numbers. Never your salary, never your net worth, never your account balances. This selective sharing does something clever. It satisfies people's curiosity just enough that they stop asking deeper questions. You become the friend who's into personal finance without anyone knowing how much you actually have. You can even discuss financial struggles from years ago, making yourself relatable, while your current wealth stays completely invisible. The psychology here is brilliant. People assume that if you're willing to talk about money at all, you must not have that much of it. The truly wealthy, they think, stay completely silent, but that's not quite right. The smartest wealthy people control the narrative by choosing exactly what to reveal and what to protect. Move 14. Keep your major purchases years apart. Here's the final move that ties everything together. When you do upgrade something, make sure years pass between major purchases. You buy a used but reliable car? Great. Now, don't touch your housing situation for 5 years. You finally move to a better apartment? Perfect. Now, keep that car for another 7 years. This spacing strategy does 2 things. First, it prevents the perception of suddenly having money. When people see you upgrade your car, your home, and your lifestyle all at once, they make assumptions. They think you got a big raise, an inheritance, or you're secretly rich. But when purchases are spread across years, each one just looks like normal life progression. Second, it protects your actual wealth building. Those gaps between purchases are when your money compounds aggressively. You're not bleeding capital on multiple upgrades. You're stacking investments while looking completely normal. Let me make this concrete. Rich Richard buys a $10,000 used car in 2015. He keeps driving it. In 2018, he moves to a better apartment, but his car stays the same. In 2022, he finally upgrades to a $15,000 used car. In 2025, he's still in the same apartment, but now his investment account is massive. To outside observers, he's just a normal guy making normal upgrades at a normal pace. Nobody sees the wealth building in the background. Poor Peter does the opposite. He leases a new car in 2015, upgrades his apartment in 2016, leases another new car in 2018, moves to an even nicer place in 2020. By 2025, his lifestyle looks better than Rich Richard's, but his net worth, basically zero. He's been upgrading constantly with nothing left to invest. Here's the formula that ties all 14 moves together. Privacy plus automation plus consistency equals invisible wealth. Privacy protects your progress from outside pressure. Automation removes the need for willpower. Consistency compounds results over decades. When these three things align, wealth builds in the background while you live a normal-looking life. Let me leave you with this. The richest form of wealth is the kind no one feels compelled to prove. Building wealth invisibly isn't about being secretive or antisocial. It's about creating financial freedom without the complications that come with visibility. It's about making choices for yourself instead of for an audience. It's about letting your assets grow quietly while everyone else is busy broadcasting theirs. The path to stealth wealth is simple. Automate your savings. Never discuss your numbers. Drive paid-off cars. Avoid social media flex. Live modestly. Freeze lifestyle creep. Invest in boring funds. Give anonymously. Cut useless subscriptions. Protect your emergency fund. Use legal entities. Build silent income streams. Master selective transparency. And space your purchases years apart. These moves don't require high income. They just require discipline and discretion. 10 years from now, you could be financially independent with a 7-figure net worth, and nobody around you will have any idea. They'll still see the same modest car, the same reasonable apartment, the same quiet life. But behind the scenes, you'll have options, freedom, and security that most people only dream about. That's the power of building wealth without anyone knowing. Now go implement these 14 moves. Your future self will thank you. You know someone making $40,000 a year who always has money. And you know someone making $80,000 who's always broke. Same city, similar expenses, completely different outcomes. The difference isn't income, it's the rules they follow every single day. Most people think more money solves money problems. It doesn't. More money just amplifies your habits. If your habits are broken, you'll be broke at any income level. But if you follow the right rules, you can build wealth and freedom on a modest salary. Today, I'm breaking down 20 minimalist rules that guarantee you always have money. Not all of them will feel comfortable. Some will push back against everything you've been taught, but that's exactly why they work. Minimalism isn't about deprivation, it's about precision. It's removing everything that doesn't serve you so what remains can actually grow. Most people are drowning in noise, excess stuff, excess commitments, excess spending, and all of it drains their wealth without them noticing. These 20 rules are your defense system. Follow them and you'll live better with less while building wealth that compounds year after year. Let's go. Rule 1. Eliminate toxic debt immediately. Some debt builds wealth. A mortgage at 4% that lets you own property, a business loan that generates income, but most debt is poison. Credit cards at 25%, payday loans, financing furniture you don't need. Every dollar going to high interest debt is a dollar stolen from your future. This isn't about being debt-free for moral reasons. It's math. If you're paying 20% interest while earning 10% on investments, you're losing 10% annually. Pay off expensive debt before anything else. It's the highest guaranteed return you'll ever get. Freedom begins the moment you cut those chains. Rule 2. Control your mornings. The way you start your day determines how it ends. If you wake up and immediately dive into chaos scrolling your phone, reacting to messages, rushing around, you'll spend the whole day in survival mode. Survival mode doesn't create wealth. Wealth is created with clarity, focus, and intentional action. Own your mornings. Wake up with a plan, not with panic. Use your first minutes for yourself. Exercise. Read something that challenges you. Write down your priorities. No phone, no noise, no distractions. These first quiet minutes plant the seeds of a successful day. Repeated daily, they compound into a successful life. The wealthy understand this. That's why they protect their mornings like a fortress. Rule 3. Plan purchases in advance. Most financial mistakes come from impulse. You see something. You want it. You buy it. Later regret. Protect yourself with planning. Whenever you feel the urge to buy, write it down instead. Wait, research. Let the initial excitement fade. If after a week or a month you still need it, then maybe it's worth it. But most desires die with time. You save both money and space. The minimalist doesn't buy to feel good in the moment. They buy to solve real problems or create long-term value. This one rule alone can save you thousands annually. Because most purchases you think you need today, you won't remember next month. Rule 4. Simplify your finances. Many accounts, many cards, scattered investments. Complexity creates confusion, and confusion kills wealth. Simplify everything. Centralize your finances. One checking account, one savings account, one credit card paid in full monthly. automate your bills and savings. Create a clear picture of what comes in and what goes out. Simplicity brings clarity. Clarity brings control. The simpler your system, the less stress you feel and the more money you keep. I've seen people with 6 bank accounts and 7 credit cards who have no idea where their money actually goes. That's not sophisticated, that's chaos disguised as complexity. Rule 5, set 3 annual priorities maximum. Without focus, life scatters. The year passes and you look back wondering where it went. Set no more than 3 annual priorities. Clear goals that, if achieved, transform your life. Save $15,000. Pay off credit card debt. Build a specific skill. Align your daily actions with these priorities and ignore everything else. Minimalists know that trying to do everything leads to nothing. Doing a few things with quality leads to wealth. Every time you're tempted to chase a new goal or opportunity, ask yourself, does this serve one of my 3 priorities? If not, it's a distraction. Cut it. Rule 6. Build a functional wardrobe. Every decision costs mental energy. Why waste it choosing clothes every morning? A functional wardrobe is simple, versatile, and high quality. Fewer pieces that match easily, last longer, and fit most situations. You'll never say, I have nothing to wear. You'll save time, reduce stress, and keep money in your pocket instead of closets full of unused clothes. Style isn't about quantity, it's about clarity. Pick a few colors that work together. Buy quality basics that last years. Donate everything else. Decision fatigue is real. Every choice you eliminate in low-value areas gives you more mental energy for high-value decisions, like investing and career moves. Rule 7. Reduce empty social commitments. Time is your most valuable resource. Every time you say yes to a commitment that adds no value, you're giving away hours of your life you'll never get back. Stop saying yes just to avoid discomfort or keep up appearances. Choose fewer but deeper interactions. A dinner with a true friend is more valuable than 10 events where you make small talk and feel drained. The minimalist knows that energy is currency. Spend it wisely and you'll always have more for what really matters. Plus, most social commitments come with spending. Drinks, meals, events, tickets. Cutting empty commitments saves money and time simultaneously. Rule 8. Master your calendar. If it's not scheduled, it won't happen. That's the law. Without a calendar, you live in reaction mode, constantly pulled by urgencies and distractions. Minimalists master their calendar. They schedule what matters. Protect focus blocks. Say no to interruptions. They treat time like money because time is money. And when you respect your hours, your bank account respects you back. Block time for learning, for side projects, for exercise, for planning finances. If it's important enough to do, it's important enough to schedule. Everything else is noise. Rule 9. Protect your energy reserves. You're not a machine. If you burn out, you'll make poor decisions with both life and money. Sleep, rest, and recovery aren't luxuries. They're investments. A tired mind overspends, procrastinates, falls for traps. A rested mind saves, plans, executes. Minimalism means protecting your most valuable asset, your energy, and spending it where it multiplies. I've watched people work 80-hour weeks trying to get ahead while making terrible financial decisions because exhaustion destroyed their judgment. Working harder doesn't build wealth. Working smarter with sustained energy does. Rule 10. Create a 30-day waiting list for desires. Not every desire deserves immediate action. Most are just sparks that vanish quickly. When you want something, write it down. But wait 30 days before deciding. After 30 days, if the desire is still there, it may be worth it. If not, you saved yourself from another unnecessary expense. This rule builds discipline, clarity, and respect for your money. Amazon wish lists work great for this. Add items. Check back monthly. You'll be shocked how many things you wanted desperately that you don't even remember adding. Rule 11. Choose quality over quantity. Anyone can have many things. Only wise people choose good things. Quality lasts, saves money, creates stability. Buy fewer clothes, but buy durable ones. Fewer gadgets, but ones that last. Apply this to relationships, habits, even your time. When you invest in quality, you waste less and wealth follows. A $200 pair of boots that last 10 years beats 5 pairs of $40 boots that die in 2 years each. Do the math. Quality wins every time. Plus, you spend less mental energy replacing broken garbage. Rule 12. Limit information intake. We live in an age of noise, news, videos, opinions, endless scrolling. Most of it doesn't help you. It just fills your head and steals focus. Information overload is the new form of debt. It drains you without giving anything back. Filter what you consume. Choose a few reliable sources. Read or watch with the intention, not passively. Disconnect from the flood. When you do, your mind becomes sharper, your decision stronger, your confidence greater. Money grows in clarity, not in noise. Cut the news. Unfollow accounts that add no value. Unsubscribe from email lists. Protect your attention like you protect your wallet. Rule 13. Keep your home simple. Your home isn't just where you live, it's where your mind rests. If it's full of clutter, mess, and visual noise, you'll never feel peace. A chaotic environment breeds a chaotic mind. Simplifying your home doesn't mean living like a monk. It means removing the useless, organizing what remains. Creating space that supports focus and calm. When everything has its place and excess is gone, you'll waste less time, make quicker decisions, feel lighter. A calm mind makes sharper financial choices. Plus, less stuff means less to maintain, clean, organize, and stress about. Rule 14. Practice emotional detachment from objects. How many things are you keeping just because they carry a memory? These items weigh you down more than you think. Memories live in your mind, not in physical objects. By letting go, you gain lightness and clarity. The same applies to money. Don't stay stuck in financial decisions just because of pride or past mistakes. Let go, reset, move forward. Minimalism is freedom from the past and freedom to build the future. That expensive gym membership you never use, the subscription box you don't open, the degree program you hate, sunk costs, cut them and move on. Rule 15. Reduce dependence on technology. Technology is a tool, but when it controls you, it becomes a prison. Notifications, endless feeds, constant checking. All of these steal focus and money. Minimalists use technology to build, not to waste. Set boundaries, cut unnecessary apps. Your attention is more valuable than gold. Don't give it away free. Delete social media apps from your phone. Turn off all notifications except calls and texts. Check email twice, daily maximum. Reclaim your attention and watch your productivity and savings both explode. Rule 16. Start with the basics. Minimalism begins with clearing the ground. If your life is full of clutter, both physical and financial, you'll never build anything solid. Look at your expenses, your commitments, your routines. Ask yourself what's truly essential, what feeds you and what drains you. Start removing obvious waste, unused subscriptions, unnecessary purchases, habits that add nothing to your future. Think of it as cleaning a floor before building a house. No construction survives on top of debris. When you strip away excess, what remains will be strong, focused, and ready to support real growth. Rule 17. Embrace routine. Many people think routine is boring, but routine is the silent weapon of freedom. When you depend only on willpower, you burn out quickly. When your important actions are part of routine, they happen automatically. A minimalist routine isn't overloaded. It's light, sharp, and focused on what truly matters. It saves energy, removes confusion, builds consistency. And consistency, more than bursts of effort, is what makes wealth grow. Morning routine, evening routine, weekly financial check-in, monthly review, build systems that run without thinking. That's how the wealthy operate. Rule 18. Maintain high-value relationships only. Your circle shapes your future. Surround yourself with people who challenge you, inspire you, support you. Cut ties with those who drain energy, distract you, lead you into wasteful habits. A few good friends are more valuable than 1,000 contacts. The right people make you richer, not poorer. If your friends encourage debt spending and instant gratification, you'll stay broke. If they encourage investing, learning, and growth, you'll build wealth. Choose carefully. Your net worth tends to match the average of your 5 closest friends. Rule 19. Rest with purpose. Rest isn't just lying around. Real rest recharges you. Disconnect. Practice silence. Walk in nature. Breathe. Don't just scroll through your phone or binge distractions. Purposeful rest gives you energy to come back stronger, sharper, and more capable. A capable person makes better financial moves. Passive rest, like watching TV for 4 hours, doesn't recharge you. It drains you further. Active rest, like hiking, reading, or meaningful conversation, actually restores energy. Know the difference. Rule 20. Review your life every 6 months. Minimalism isn't a one-time event. It's continuous. Every 6 months, review your life. Look at routines, finances, commitments. What has become excess again? What no longer serves you? Cut it. Refocus, realign. This review keeps your life sharp, lean, and always moving toward freedom. Schedule it. Make it non-negotiable. Most people drift through years without ever checking if they're on track. Don't be most people. Here's the reality. These 20 rules sound simple, but most people won't follow them. They'll read this, nod along, then go back to the same patterns that keep them broke. Don't be that person. Pick 3 rules from this list, just 3. Implement them this week, master them this month, then add 3 more. Wealth isn't about doing everything perfectly from day one. It's about doing a few things consistently over time. Less waste, less noise, less confusion. That creates more money, more freedom, more life. The minimalist path isn't easy, but it works. And it's available to anyone willing to cut the excess and focus on what actually matters. Start today. Your future self will thank you. You got a raise last year, a good one, maybe even a promotion. And somehow, looking at your bank account right now, you have less saved than you did 12 months ago. Not because of bad luck, not because of an emergency, just because life got slightly more expensive in ways you can barely trace. A nicer apartment, a few more subscriptions, dinners out that used to be special occasions and are now just Tuesdays. Meanwhile, someone making the exact same salary as you has $20,000 in savings, 0 debt, and sleeps like a baby on Sunday nights. What do they know that you don't? It is not a budgeting app. It is not a stock pick. It is 13 rules about how you spend, what you keep, and how you think about the stuff in your life. Rules that quietly separate people who build wealth from people who just earn income. Rule 1. Freeze your lifestyle when your income grows. This is the rule that separates people who get rich from people who just get better at spending. It is called lifestyle inflation, and it is the single most invisible wealth destroyer in personal finance. Here is how it works. You earn $60,000 and spend $55,000. You get a raise to $75,000. Within 6 months, you are spending $70,000. Your income grew by $15,000 a year. Your savings barely moved. Where did that raise go? A slightly nicer apartment, a better car lease, upgraded subscriptions, more convenience purchases. Each one felt reasonable on its own. Together, they swallowed the entire increase. Let me make this concrete. Rich Richard gets a $10,000 raise. Before his first bigger paycheck even hits, he increases his automatic savings transfer key by $5,000 a year. He never sees that money in his checking account. He never adjusts to having it. The other $5,000? Sure, he enjoys some of it. Better groceries, maybe one nicer trip, but half the raise went straight to building wealth before his brain could spend it. Poor Peter gets the same raise. He upgrades his apartment by $400 a month. That is $4,800 a year. He switches to a premium gym. He starts ordering nicer wine. Within 3 months, every dollar of that raise has a job, and none of those jobs are building his future. Here is the rule. Every time your income increases, save at least half the increase before you spend any of it. Automate the transfer before the first new paycheck arrives. You cannot miss money you never had access to. This one habit, done consistently over a career, is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it costs you nothing because you were already living fine on the old salary. Rule 2, 1 in, 1 out. Nothing enters your life without something leaving. Here's what everyone gets wrong about clutter. They think it happens because they don't organize well enough. Clutter happens because the rate of stuff coming in exceeds the rate of stuff going out. It is that simple. The 1 in, 1 out rule fixes this permanently. Every time you buy something new, something similar has to leave your home. New shirt, old shirt gets donated. New kitchen gadget, one has to go. New pair of shoes, pick the pair you wore least and say goodbye. This does 2 things simultaneously. First, it keeps your physical space manageable without requiring massive weekend purges every few months. Second, and this is the financial part most people miss, it makes you think twice about every purchase. Because now buying something is not just about spending money, it is also about losing something you already own. That friction alone kills a surprising number of impulse buys. I started doing this about 2 years ago, and here's what surprised me. It was not the big purchases that slowed down, it was the small ones. The random kitchen tools, the extra phone chargers, the novelty items that seemed fun for about 4 days. When you know something has to leave to make room, you stop accumulating the tiny stuff that quietly drains your wallet and fills your drawers. Try it for 30 days. Nothing new comes in unless something goes out. Watch how your spending changes when every purchase has a built-in cost beyond the price tag. Rule 3. Calculate cost per use, not cost per item. This is where minimalism stops looking like deprivation and starts looking like intelligence. Almost everyone evaluates purchases by sticker price. That is the wrong metric. The right metric is cost per use. A $50 shirt you wear 100 times costs you 50 cents per wear. A $15 shirt you wear 5 times before it falls apart costs you $3 per wear. The cheap shirt costs 6 times more to actually use. This math applies everywhere. Furniture, electronics, kitchen equipment, shoes, coats, tools. The item that costs more upfront but lasts 5 times longer is almost always the cheaper option over its lifetime. But here's the psychological trap. Your brain sees $50 leaving your wallet versus $15 leaving your wallet, and it screams that 15 is the better deal. It is not. Your brain is bad at long-term math when short-term pain is involved. Rich Richard buys one pair of boots for $220. He wears them 300 plus times over 4 years. Cost per wear, about 70 cents. Poor Peter buys new $60 boots every year because they keep falling apart. After 4 years, he has spent $240s. Dollars and his feet have been wet more times than he would like to admit. Before your next significant purchase, do the math. Divide the price by the number of times you will realistically use it. High cost per use means the item is a waste regardless of how cheap it was. Low cost per use means the item is a bargain regardless of the sticker price. This one shift in thinking will change what you buy, how often you buy it, and how much money you actually keep. Rule 4, separate your money into exactly 2 accounts and stop there. Financial advisors love complexity. Multiple accounts, multiple cards, multiple investment platforms, separate savings buckets for every goal. It looks sophisticated. It is not. It is confusion disguised as strategy. Here is what actually works. 1 checking account for spending, 1 savings account for building, 1 credit card paid in full every month. That is it. Automate your bills and your savings transfers. Create a clear, instant picture of what comes in and what goes out. I have seen people with 6 bank accounts and 7 credit cards who genuinely have no idea where their money goes each month. They think having multiple accounts means they are diversified. It does not. It means they are too scattered to track anything properly. Think of it like a kitchen. A chef with 3 sharp knives and a clean counter will outcook someone with 40 dull gadgets crammed into every drawer. The tools are not the problem. The chaos is. This week, look at every financial account you have open. If you cannot explain what each one does in a single sentence, close it or consolidate it. If you have credit cards collecting dust, cancel them. Set up one clear system where you can see all money movement at a glance. If you cannot explain your entire financial setup to a friend in under 3 minutes, it is too complicated. Simplicity creates clarity. Clarity creates control. Control creates wealth. Rule 5, stop replacing things at the first sign of wear. We live in a disposable culture. Something cracks, frays, scuffs, or slows down, and our first instinct is to replace it. New phone, new jacket, new blender, new headphones. That instinct is expensive. Most things can be repaired for a fraction of replacement cost. Shoe repair shops still exist. Electronics parts are available online for pennies. Clothing alterations extend the life of garments by years. Appliance repair videos on YouTube will walk you through fixes that take 20 minutes. I had a coffee maker that stopped working after 3 years. Replacement cost, $120. I found the broken part on the manufacturer's website, $8. Watched a video on how to swap it. 20 minutes later, it was working again. That was 4 years ago. The coffee maker is still going. That is $112 saved on a single item that I almost threw in the trash. Here's the compounding effect people miss. It is not just $112. It is $112 times every item in your life that you repair instead of replace. Multiply that across shoes, jackets, electronics, appliances, furniture, tools. We are talking about thousands of dollars a year for most households. Next time something breaks, resist the urge to open a shopping tab. Instead, search for repair and then the item name. Check YouTube for a walkthrough. Get a quote from a repair shop. You will find that most fixes cost 20 to 30% of what replacement would cost. Even if the repair only buys you 2 more years, you saved money and bought time. Rule 6. Build a uniform and stop wasting decisions on clothes. Every decision you make during the day costs mental energy. Psychologists call it decision fatigue. And most people burn through a shocking amount of that energy before 9 a.m. just figuring out what to wear. That matters because decision fatigue does not just make you tired, it makes you impulsive. The person who spent their morning agonizing over outfit choices is the same person who caves and buys something unnecessary during their lunch break. Your brain ran out of resistance hours ago. The fix is what some people call a capsule wardrobe. Fewer pieces that all work together, all fit well, and cover every situation you actually encounter in your life. You do not need 30 options. You need maybe 10 that rotate cleanly. The average American owns about 120 items of clothing and regularly wears maybe 30% of them. That means roughly 70 items are taking up space and mental overhead for zero value. Just sitting there, making your mornings harder and your closet messier. This weekend, try an experiment. Pull everything out of your closet. Make 3 piles. Things you wear every week, things you wear occasionally, things you have not touched in 6 months. Donate the 6-month pile immediately. Box up the occasionally pile for 90 days. If you do not, reach into that box once, donate it too. You are not losing options. You are gaining clarity, and clarity in your closet has a funny way of creating clarity in your bank account. Rule 7. Apply the 24-hour rule to every non-essential purchase. Retailers are extremely good at one thing: bypassing your rational brain and triggering impulse decisions. Limited time offers, flash sales, only 3 left in stock, countdown timers. All of it is engineered to make you buy before you think. The 24-hour rule puts your prefrontal cortex back in charge. Here's how it works. You see something you want. Instead of buying it immediately, you take a screenshot or save the link. You walk away. You wait 24 full hours, then you revisit the decision. If you still want it and you can afford it without using debt, maybe it is worth buying. But here is what will actually happen. About 90% of the time, the desire evaporates. The gaming console that felt essential last night does not even cross your mind the next morning. The designer jacket on sale that you almost pulled the trigger on feels completely irrelevant by the time you wake up. The kitchen gadget that was going to change everything, you forgot you even considered it. My wife and I implemented this rule for anything over $30. First month, we saved over $400 on purchases we were about to make that we genuinely did not want 24 hours later. Multiply that by 12 months and you are looking at close to $5,000 in annual savings just by introducing a pause. For the next 30 days, try it. Every non-essential purchase over $20, take a screenshot, save the link, revisit tomorrow. Track how many purchases die overnight. That number, multiplied by 12, is the annual cost of your impulse buying habit. Rule 8. Detach your emotions from your purchases. How many things in your life are you keeping right now not because they are useful, but because getting rid of them would feel like admitting you wasted money? That gym membership you have not used in 8 months. The subscription box that piles up unopened. The online course you bought and never started. The guitar sitting in the closet that you swore you would learn. You are not keeping these things because they add value. You are keeping them because the sunk cost makes you feel guilty about letting go. Here is the truth that is hard to hear. The money is already gone. Keeping the thing does not recover the money. It just adds ongoing cost, whether that is monthly charges, physical clutter, or mental weight. I kept a guitar I never played for 3 years because I spent $800 on it, finally sold it for $200. I felt like I lost $600, but the reality is I lost that $600 the day I stopped playing. Keeping it just meant I lost $600 and wasted closet space for 3 years on top of it. Cutting losses is a skill, and like any skill, it gets easier with practice. This week, identify 3 things you're holding onto purely because of what you paid for them. Sell them, donate them, cancel them. The relief you feel from dropping that weight is worth more than the object ever was. Rule 9. Protect your attention like you protect your wallet. Information overload is the modern financial threat nobody talks about. Not because it costs you money directly, but because it ruins the quality of every money decision you make. Every headline about economic collapse, every social media post about someone's new car, every YouTube ad promising passive income in 30 days, every finance influencer telling you their strategy is the one that works. It all creates noise, and noise creates 2 things that destroy wealth: anxiety and paralysis. You consume more financial content than any generation in history, and yet people are more stressed about money than ever. That is not a coincidence. The information is not helping you decide. It is helping you doubt. I cut my news intake to about 15 minutes a day, checked once in the morning, no constant updates, no doom scrolling, no refreshing stock tickers. The result was not that I missed important information. The result was better focus, clearer thinking, and more confidence in the financial decisions I had already made. The world did not end because I stopped checking it hourly. This week, unfollow 5 accounts that add noise without adding clarity. Unsubscribe from email lists that exist only to sell you something. Protect your attention the same way you protect your bank account, because ultimately they are connected. The person who spends 3 hours a day consuming financial anxiety content makes worse money decisions than the person who spends 15 minutes on the facts and then goes and lives their life. Rule 10. Build your finances on routine, not willpower. Willpower is overrated. It runs out, it fluctuates. With your mood, your sleep, your stress levels, building your financial life on willpower is like building a house on sand. It works until it does not, and then everything shifts. Routine is different. Routine runs on autopilot. It does not require motivation. It does not care if you had a bad day. It just executes. The wealthiest people I know do not make daily decisions about money. They made the decisions once, built them into systems, and then those systems ran without needing attention. Automatic transfers on payday, same grocery list every week, budget review every Sunday morning, net worth check on the first of every month. Every time you have to decide whether to save, whether to invest, whether to stick to your budget, you risk deciding no. That is not weakness. That is just how human brains work under fatigue. Rich Richard set up an automatic transfer of $500 to savings on the 1st and 15th of every month 3 years ago. He has not thought about it since. He now has over $35,000 in that account just from the autopilot transfers alone, not counting returns. Poor Peter keeps meaning to save more. He tells himself he will transfer money when he has extra at the end of the month. Extra never arrives because it always finds somewhere to go. Pick one financial action and make it automatic this week. One thing, just one. An auto transfer to savings, a recurring investment, a calendar reminder for a weekly spending review. Remove the decision from the equation, then watch consistency do what motivation never could. Rule 11. Audit your relationships for financial drag. This one makes people uncomfortable, but it might be the most impactful rule on this list. Your spending habits are contagious. They spread through your social circle like a virus. If your 5 closest friends all drive finance cars, eat at expensive restaurants every weekend, and judge people by what they own, you will do the same. Not because you are weak, because you are human. Social pressure is not something you overcome with willpower. It is something you manage with environment. I had to distance myself from a group of friends who mocked my savings habits. They called me cheap for bringing lunch instead of spending $15 every day at restaurants. They rolled their eyes when I said I did not need a new car. 5 years later, I had a down payment for property. They had credit card debt and restaurant receipts. Here's the uncomfortable math. $15 a day on lunches out, 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year. That is $3,750 a year. Over 5 years, that is $18,750, not counting what that money could have earned invested. Your lunch group is literally costing you a down payment. Now, I am not saying ditch your friends over money. I am saying pay attention to which relationships encourage wealth building and which ones quietly drain it. Spend more time with the people who make you feel smart for saving. Spend less time with the people who make you feel weird about it. Your financial future will reflect the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Choose carefully. Rule 12. Replace passive rest with active rest. This sounds like it has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with money. When you collapse on the couch after work and scroll your phone for 3 hours, you are not resting. You are numbing. And numbing leads to impulse purchases because your brain is exhausted, bored, and reaching for any dopamine hit it can find. That is why most online shopping happens between 8 p.m. and midnight, not during the day when you are sharp, at night when you are fried. Active rest is different. Walking outside, reading a book, cooking a real meal, exercising, having a meaningful conversation. These activities actually restore your mental energy instead of draining it further. You feel better afterward, not groggier. I replaced 2 hours of evening screen time with reading and walking. Sleep improved, decision making got sharper during the day, and here is the one that surprised me. Impulse purchases dropped noticeably because I was not exhausted and reaching for dopamine hits from shopping apps at 10 p.m. The connection between rest quality and spending quality is direct. When you are properly rested, you make patient, rational financial decisions. When you are numbed out and exhausted, you make impulsive, emotional ones. Fix your rest and your spending will fix itself in ways no budget spreadsheet ever could. This week, replace 1 hour of passive scrolling with something that actually recharges you. Then pay attention to your spending behavior the next day. You will see the connection immediately. Rule 13. Schedule a life audit every 6 months or you will drift. Minimalism is not a weekend project. It is not something you do once and then coast on. Forever. Without regular review, complexity creeps back in. Subscriptions accumulate, commitments stack up, spending habits quietly expand, and one day you look around and realize you are right back where you started. Every 6 months, block 3 hours. Review everything. What are you spending money on? Are you hitting your savings targets? What commitments have you taken on that no longer serve you? What subscriptions are silently billing you for things you forgot you signed up for? What possessions have you accumulated that are just taking up space? I do mine every January and July. I compare where I am to where I plan to be. Then I adjust. I cancel what does not matter anymore. I cut what crept in without permission. It is boring, it is unglamorous, and it is the reason my savings rate has stayed above 20% while the national average sits around 3 to 4%. People drift through years without ever stopping to check if they are still heading in the right direction. They are surprised when they end up somewhere they did not plan to be. Do not be that person. Schedule the audit, put it in your calendar right now, and when it comes, actually do it. Rich Richard added these 13 rules gradually over about 2 years. He froze his lifestyle when he got raises. He started repairing instead of replacing. He built a simple wardrobe. He implemented the 24-hour rule. He cut information noise. He automated his finances. He scheduled his 6-month reviews. In 5 years, Rich Richard has $90,000 in investments, growing passive income, and genuine financial peace. Not because he earned more than anyone else, because he kept more than everyone else. Poor Peter watched this video, took notes, did nothing, still lets every raise get absorbed by slightly nicer things he barely notices, still replaces items at the first sign of wear, still scrolls for 3 hours every night and wonders why he keeps buying things he does not need, still lets his social circle set his spending level. Same income as Rich Richard, same opportunities, completely different trajectory. The difference between them was never talent, luck, or income. It was whether they treated these rules as a system they actually lived by or as interesting ideas they plan to get around to someday. Someday never comes. Today does. Pick 3 rules, start there, let them compound. Everyone talks about investing, building credit scores, and maximizing returns. But almost nobody talks about the actual power of just having cash sitting in your account. Real money that you can access right now without selling anything, without waiting for approval, without jumping through hoops. It's like cash has become the embarrassing cousin of personal finance that nobody wants to invite to the party. Here's why keeping substantial cash reserves might be the most powerful financial position you could possibly be in. And I'll show you the math that proves it. Most financial advice optimizes for numbers on a spreadsheet. Higher returns, lower fees, maximum compounding, but numbers on paper don't equal power in real life. Think of it like having a PhD in nutrition versus actually being healthy. Knowing the optimal strategy doesn't help if it leaves you stressed and trapped. Real wealth isn't just about net worth. It's about options, freedom, and the ability to act when everyone else is frozen. First, cash gives you power during chaos. Everyone talks about buying the dip and being greedy when others are fearful. But here's what actually happens during market crashes. Most people can't do anything about it. Their money is already invested, probably down 30 to 40%. They're too scared to sell at a loss, they're getting margin calls or watching their portfolio bleed. The last thing they can do is come up with fresh cash to invest. They're paralyzed. But the person with substantial cash reserves, they're shopping. They're buying assets at 50 cents on the dollar. They're picking up rental properties from desperate sellers. They're acquiring businesses that are temporarily struggling but fundamentally sound. They're making deals that will define their wealth for the next decade. This isn't theory. This is exactly what happened in 2008, in 2020, and it'll happen again in the next downturn. Let me make this concrete. Let's say you kept $200,000 in cash for years. Your friends constantly gave you grief about it. They'd calculate how much you were losing to inflation. They'd show you charts of what that money could have become in index funds. They'd mock you for being too conservative. Then 2020 happened. Markets crashed 35% in a month. Everyone was panicking about jobs, businesses, mortgage payments. Meanwhile, you were calm. Not because you enjoyed watching others suffer, but because you had options. You had power. You had cash. While everyone else was in survival mode, you went shopping. You bought stocks at incredible discounts. You picked up a commercial property from a panicked seller at 40% below market value. 5 years later, That $200,000 in cash that everyone mocked had turned into over $800,000 in assets. But more importantly, you never felt stressed or trapped during one of the most chaotic periods in modern history. That's the difference between being technically rich on paper and being actually powerful in real life. Second, cash gives you walk-away power. This is the most underrated benefit that absolutely nobody talks about. How much would your life change if you had 2 years of expenses sitting in cash right now? Not invested in stocks that you'd have to sell at whatever price the market offers. Not in real estate that takes months to liquidate. Just cash that you could access tomorrow if you needed it. Suddenly, that terrible boss doesn't seem quite so intimidating. That toxic work environment becomes tolerable because you know you could walk away tomorrow. Those unreasonable demands from clients become negotiable because you are not desperate for every dollar. When you have substantial liquid reserves, you can afford to walk away from bad situations, bad jobs, bad business deals, bad investments, bad relationships. Most people stay trapped in terrible situations not because they want to, but because they can't afford to leave. They need the next paycheck. They can't risk the instability. They're financially handcuffed to their circumstances. But here's where it gets really interesting. This walk-away power doesn't just protect you from bad situations, it actually attracts better situations. When you're not desperate, people can sense it. Employers know you're choosing to work there, not trapped there, which paradoxically makes them value you more. Business partners know you don't need the deal, which gives you better negotiating leverage. Even in personal relationships, not being financially dependent changes the entire dynamic in healthy ways. I've watched this play out over and over. The people with the most financial stress are usually the ones making the most money, but spending every penny to maintain an impressive lifestyle. They're trapped by golden handcuffs, unable to make any changes because their expensive life requires their expensive income. Meanwhile, someone earning half as much but keeping substantial cash reserves has infinitely more freedom and power. They can take risks. They can try new things. They can walk away from anything that doesn't serve them. Third, opportunity cost works both ways. Everyone knows that money sitting in cash loses purchasing power to inflation. $1 today won't buy as much in 5 years. This is the main argument against keeping substantial cash reserves. But here's what they conveniently forget to mention. Investments also have costs that nobody wants to talk about. First, there's market risk. Your portfolio can lose 30, 40, even 50% of its value in a matter of months. Sure, it usually recovers eventually, but what if you need that money during the down period? What if that job loss or medical emergency happens when your portfolio is down 40%? Suddenly, you're forced to sell investments at the worst possible time, locking in losses that would have recovered if you just had cash to cover the emergency instead. Then there's the less obvious cost. Opportunity cost works both ways. Yes, cash sitting idle might miss out on investment returns, but money locked up in investments also misses out on cash opportunities. That rental property selling for half price because the owner is desperate. You can't buy it if all your money's in stocks. That business opportunity that requires immediate capital. You can't participate if you're fully invested. That chance to help a friend or family member in a way that would strengthen important relationships, not possible if you don't have liquid resources. The math here is simple but profound. Missing a 10% annual return on $100,000 costs you $10,000 per year in opportunity cost. But missing out on a single, once-in-a-decade opportunity to buy an asset at 50% off could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Which loss is bigger? Everyone focuses on the steady, predictable opportunity cost of holding cash. Nobody calculates the massive opportunity cost of not having cash when you need it most. Let me show you two different scenarios. Poor Peter has $150,000 fully invested in a diversified portfolio. He's done everything right according to conventional wisdom. When the market crashes, his portfolio drops to $90,000. He needs $30,000 for an emergency, which forces him to sell investments at the worst possible time. That $30,000 he sold would have been worth about $120,000 just 5 years later if he'd been able to hold it. Total damage. He lost $60,000 in value he could have recovered, plus he missed the rebound on those shares. Total cost, easily $80,000 to $100,000 when you account for loss recovery gains. Rich Richard kept $50,000 in cash, which his financial advisor constantly criticized. When the same emergency happened, he used his cash reserves, left his investments alone, and they recovered fully. Even better, he used another $20,000 of his cash to buy stocks at crash prices, which tripled in value over the next decade. Same emergency, completely different outcomes. All because one person had cash and the other didn't. Fourth, cash isn't defense, it's offense. This is something that changes how you should think about cash reserves entirely. Cash isn't just about emergencies or safety nets. Cash is your opportunity fund. Cash is what allows you to play when everyone else is sitting on the bench. The wealthiest people understand this instinctively. They don't see cash as dead money earning nothing. They see cash as loaded weapons waiting for the perfect target. Warren Buffett, probably the most successful investor in history, regularly keeps tens of billions of dollars in cash, not millions. Billions with a B. His company Berkshire Hathaway often holds $100 billion or more in cash and cash equivalents. Does Warren Buffett not understand opportunity cost? Does he not know about inflation? Of course he does. He keeps massive cash reserves specifically because he understands something that most people miss. The best investment opportunities require cash, and they appear when everyone else is broke. Every market crash, every recession, every crisis creates incredible opportunities for those who have cash to deploy. But those opportunities only exist because most people don't have cash available. If everyone had substantial reserves, there would be no distressed sales, no panic selling, no deals to be made. The power of cash comes specifically from the fact that most people don't have it when they need it most. This is the hidden truth about wealth building that nobody wants to explain because it sounds too cynical. Other people's lack of liquidity creates your opportunities. Now let's talk actual numbers. How much cash should you keep? The standard advice is 3 to 6 months of expenses for an emergency fund, but that's not what I'm talking about here. 3 to 6 months is your basic safety net. It keeps you from going into debt when your car breaks down or you lose your job. What I'm describing is something completely different. I'm talking about keeping enough cash that you could actually do something significant with it if an opportunity appeared. For most people, this probably means at least 1 year of expenses in cash, ideally closer to 2 years. On top of that, you want what I call an opportunity fund. This is money you're specifically keeping liquid not for emergencies, but for opportunities. How much? That depends on your situation, but think about what kind of opportunities you'd want to take advantage of. If you're interested in real estate, you need enough for a down payment. If you're thinking about starting a business, you need startup capital. If you want to invest during market crashes, you need substantial investment money. I can already hear the objections, but that's way too much cash. I'm losing so much money to inflation. I need to be invested to build wealth. Okay, let's do some actual math instead of just repeating what everyone says. Let's say you keep $100,000 in cash earning basically nothing. With 3% inflation, you're losing about $3,000 per year in purchasing power. That sounds terrible until you consider the alternative scenarios. Scenario 1, you're fully invested. The market drops 30%. You have an emergency and need to sell $30,000 in investments. You've just lost $9,000 to the market drop. Plus, you've locked in losses on investments that would have recovered. Total cost, easily $20,000 to $30,000 when you account for lost recovery gains. Scenario 2, you keep cash and an incredible opportunity appears. You deploy $50,000 at a 40% discount to fair value. You've just made $20,000 to $30,000 or more, potentially much more if it's a truly great opportunity. Scenario 3, you keep cash. You maintain psychological peace and walk away power for an entire decade, making better decisions because you're not operating from fear. What's that worth? Probably more than any investment return. The point isn't that you should never invest. The point is that being fully invested isn't automatically the right answer just because that's what everyone says you should do. There's a balance, and that balance probably includes more cash than conventional wisdom suggests. Fifth, cash allows you to be patient with your other investments. When you know you have substantial liquid reserves, you can afford to be truly long-term with your investments. You never have to sell stocks at a bad time because you need money. You never have to liquidate real estate during a down market. You can hold everything as long as it takes for your thesis to play out. This patience alone probably adds several percentage points to your annual returns by avoiding forced selling during downturns. Think about how most people actually behave with their investments. They panic and sell during crashes. They chase returns during bubbles. They make emotional decisions based on their current financial stress. Why? Usually because they don't have enough cash reserves. Every market movement feels like an emergency. They're not investing with money they can afford to lose or let sit for decades. They're investing with money they might need next year, which means every downturn becomes a crisis. Compare that to someone with 2 years of expenses in cash plus an opportunity fund. They can watch their portfolio drop 40% and feel nothing, maybe even excitement, because they know they can add to positions at lower prices. They're not checking their account balance every day, stress eating about market volatility, or lying awake wondering if they should sell. They have the luxury of patience, which is arguably the most valuable trait in investing. Quick sanity check on what this actually looks like. Let's say your monthly expenses are $4,000. That's $48,000 per year. 2 years of expenses means you need $96,000 in cash for your extended emergency fund. Add another $50,000 as your opportunity fund. That's $146,000 total in cash. Now let's say you also have $200,000 invested in index funds and you own a rental property with $100,000 in equity. Your total net worth is $446,000. But $146,000 of that, roughly 33%, is sitting in cash, earning basically nothing. Financial advisors would tell you you're crazy. They'd calculate that you're losing $4,380 per year to 3% inflation on that cash. Over 10 years, that's $43,800 in lost purchasing power. Sounds terrible, right? But here's what that cash actually bought you. Complete psychological peace for a decade. The ability to sleep well regardless of market conditions. Walk away power from any bad situation. The ability to buy during the next crash when assets are 50% off. Protection from forced selling during downturns. Better decision making because you're not desperate. What's all that worth? Way more than $43,000. Poor Peter saves that $43,000 by staying fully invested. But he loses $80,000 when he's forced to sell during the next crash to cover an emergency. He misses another $100,000 in gains by not having cash to buy during that same crash. And he stays trapped in a job he hates for 5 extra years because he can't afford to take any risks. Total cost, hundreds of thousands in lost opportunities plus years of unnecessary stress. Rich Richard keeps his cash. He loses the $43,000 to inflation, but he makes $200,000 buying during the crash. He switches to a better job that pays $20,000 more per year because he had the runway to take that risk. And he sleeps well for an entire decade. Net result, he's hundreds of thousands ahead and infinitely more peaceful. Here's the psychology shift that matters most. Having substantial cash reserves actually makes you a better investor and better business person overall. When you're not desperate for returns, you can afford to be selective. You can wait for truly great opportunities instead of settling for mediocre ones. You can walk away from deals that don't meet your standards. You can negotiate from strength instead of weakness. The times when you make the best financial decisions are always when you have plenty of cash reserves. You can think clearly, evaluate options rationally, and make choices based on logic rather than fear. The times when you make the worst decisions are always when you're cash poor, even if you're investment rich on paper. Desperation makes you stupid, and lack of liquidity creates desperation. Let's shift gears. Here's what the financial industry doesn't want you understanding. They make money when your money is invested with them, not when it's sitting in your checking account. So the entire system is designed to make you feel guilty about holding cash. Every article tells you to stay fully invested. Every calculator shows you how much you're losing to inflation. Every advisor pushes you to maximize your invested assets. But the wealthiest people I know, the ones with real power, not just impressive net worths on paper, they all understand what I'm telling you. They keep substantial cash reserves because cash is the most powerful financial tool there is. Cash is options. Cash is freedom. Cash is the ability to act when others can't.